Alright lads, so if you recently started Bleach Soul Resonance and missed out on the opportunity to get some of the best characters in the game, Gin, Toshiro, Ichigo, and especially Aizen, well, good news because all 4 characters are returning. I actually can't believe it's happening like this. The big question anytime a new character would leave is, when is X character returning? And with the big update that we are going to be getting on the 13th with a lot of new content that doesn't include Nelio. Nelio's still releasing on the 20th, but there's still a lot to look forward to. And one of those things is going to be the limited time character rerun. And I'm very curious to see if this is how reruns are going to work in the future, because what we're seeing here is that all characters are coming back. Ichigo, Toshiro, Aizen, and also Gin. They're all going to be on one particular banner, not at the same time. You select the character you want, so you're still pulling for one unit. And with that in mind, they're guaranteed like usual, 80 summons. Their weapon stamp is also returning, guaranteed in 40. As stated here too, the pity is shed, so if you're currently on 60 out of 80 on the Kenpachi banner, it means you're only 2 multis away from getting Ichigo, Toshiro, Gin, Aizen of your choice. So you select the character you want, and then with that in mind, now that those 4 characters are returning, you might be asking, what characters should you be going for, if you should be going for any of them? Or do you want to still summon for Kenpachi, or are you going to start saving up for Nelio, the next limited character release? So with that in mind, I am fortunate enough right now to have access to all limited characters. It's been relatively easy to keep up as a very, very light spender. So first up, let's talk about Ichigo. In my opinion, for starters, let me just clarify actually. Summon for your favorite characters. This game is relatively easy, even though we're about to speak about Ichigo and, clarify that he's been kind of, not power crept, but, Kenpachi is a better alternative. Ichigo is still perfectly good as a character and still can be used in a lot of different content, if not every piece of content. And the same is said for every character here. So the best thing to do is to summon for your favorite character. If you are a massive fan of Aizen, I mean, why aren't you? You should be summoning for Aizen in that regard. But obviously, Aizen's a really good character. You should summon for him anyway, but we'll get to him in a minute. So in regards to Ichigo as a character, I think he should be a pretty easy skip unless you are going for duplicates, right? Maybe you are a player that started this game with one goal in mind to summon for every character, and then maybe as the new characters have released, you started to get duplicates of units. And maybe you've been wanting to go back and duplicate your Ichigo to make him an overall better character, because he is an overall good unit. The thing about this character right now is the way he does work in terms of damage. This character is strictly all about getting to that holification state, and only then will you be able to do a lot of damage, because you can do multiple special attacks in the course of 10 seconds, 2 usage of his technique, and then his ultimate, the death blow, does deal a massive amount of damage. All the damage, for the most part, like 90%, maybe 80%, comes from that ultimate alone. So the way you do build him is all about going with that ultimate charge rate. You want to build as much ultimate charge rate as possible. That way you can get the most damage out of him. And in terms of duplicate, I believe it's his second dupe. It's his first dupe. Actually getting his first duplicate, if you do like using this character, is a really good idea to do, because every time you do use a special attack, it does increase your crit rate by 30% for 6 seconds. And this can stack up twice, so when you are using your ultimate, you just get a lot of extra crit rate, 60% very easily. And when you look at his passive effects, for every 1% crit rate, you get 2% crit damage after 100%. So that extra 60%, if your crit rate is already naturally high, can easily turn into 30% crit damage. Sorry, it's the opposite, 120% crit damage, right? So getting his first duplicate is actually really good if you do like using this character. But as of right now, because we are talking about meta standpoint technically, right? I do think Ichigo has been just not power crept, but Kenpachi is just the much better character. He overall does out damage Ichigo and isn't relying on getting all the damage through his ultimate. With the way Kenpachi does work as a unit, his weapon stamp, his technique, his special attack, everything is dealing a lot of damage with Kenpachi, and that overall does contribute to him dealing more damage. So if you are looking for a new slash DPS character, I would definitely recommend Kenpachi over Ichigo, and therefore skipping Ichigo. Another reason for that is because we do know the next available character, Nelio, is going to be an element damage bonus character. So when she does release next week, she is actually going to be a much better support for a character like Kenpachi and not so much Ichigo. You're not really going to be able to use those 2 characters together. So if you do like Nelio, Ichigo is kind of going to be useless, but Kenpachi can be used alongside her. At least that's the idea. But the thing Kenpachi has going over Ichigo right now, we did do a comparison video, is also the survivability. Ichigo is a very squishy character and always wants to do special attacks. So you're very open for attacks, especially if you're up against a difficult boss fight like Aizen and also Okiura. Whereas a character like Kenpachi, his whole gameplay is constantly spamming those special attacks, enhanced techniques, and techniques. So you're very rarely ever getting interrupted with a character like Kenpachi. And due to this passive boost, he does reduce the damage that he does take, making over his damage output higher and also survivability much better in my opinion than Ichigo. So again, in my opinion, Ichigo is a relatively easy skip. You do not need him if you're looking for a slash DPS. Kenpachi is still currently available. Next up, let's talk about Gin. Gin is definitely worth summoning for if you didn't already summon for him. Again, it's kind of funny and weird to see him already return. He literally left like 2 weeks ago and he's already coming back. But Gin right now is an absolutely amazing character. The best full assault thrust character in the game, does replace Ikaku. And if you are someone that is lacking Ikaku, like my account for example, I have every character in the game besides Ikaku. I just don't need him because Gin is just significantly better. And like we did say already, Nelio is releasing next week, and she is a Thrust-type support tactic unit more so, and she does boost element damage, so she is the best in slot for a character like Gin. If you're a fan of Gin and you want this against someone Nelio, more reason to get this character, maybe even duplicates if you do like him that much. Overall, Gin is all about doing element damage. That's where most of his damage comes from, but again, his technique especially can deal a lot of damage. His ultimate can also deal a good amount of damage. And I would like to say the technique is one of the best parts about this character because it does have to consume 3 technique points, so you can't always use the technique. But with the rotation, especially with Nelio releasing, most of the time you are just switching into him when you do have 3 technique points, which you can get by inflicting Impel Skill. And then with that, you are able to deal a lot of damage, but it also does give you invincibility during this time. So you can use this attack as an offensive attack, but also a defensive attack, which I really do like. And that's why he was actually really good, again, in some of those more difficult boss fights, especially Okiura, for example. Again, in terms of boundaries, I think getting his first dupe, more often than not, the first 2 duplicates of any character is also really good if you are going for that. The first boundary does make it so you can instantly use your max technique straight away, and also, again, use that enhanced technique right after you do use your ultimate. Speaking of the ultimate, every time you do consume 1 technique point after getting his second boundary, you are increasing your crit damage by 35% up to 6 times. So, really good stuff. Really good duplicates for Gin if you want to make him the best DPS you can do. In my opinion, I definitely think Gin is worth summoning for. Next up, let's talk about Toshiro. I think right now, honestly, Toshiro's okay. I think you can probably go without him. I don't think he's a must summon like Kenpachi. Granted, Kenpachi's not returning, but you know he's still available. Compared to Gin, I just don't think Toshiro is all that. He does take a bit of setting up to do. The idea with this character is that you do want to build up his spiritual pressure, which you can do by using his technique, and then with that, you do get to enter his Tensou During form, which make his basic attacks actually pretty powerful, up to 1000% of his attack for all 5 hits. And then the game plan is to build up his ultimate where you do enter his Bankai state, and you do want to use the Bankai relatively quick. The Bankai's ultimate more so to deal a lot of ultimate damage. The thing with Toshiro though, and even though he's an overall good character, still right now the best full assault spirit unit, I think he can very easily get replaced. I think the next full assault character we are going to get, other than, you know, hopefully Grimjout in the future as a strike full assault character, likely is to be a spirit one because we can easily get better than this unit. But Toshiro is heavily reliant on having Aizen on the team. With Gin, his team is fairly simple. You just bring Kaname. Everyone has Kaname. With Kenpachi, you don't even need to bring a battlefield character. You can use Kisuke and Yachiru. But obviously, they're going to get Nelio in the future, right? That seems really good. Toshiro needs Aizen. If you don't have Aizen, Toshiro's kind of just mid. At least when compared to the other characters, in my opinion, right? Kenpachi and also Gin. I think he's the only limited character that is very reliant on another limited character. So if you are summoning for Toshiro, for some reason don't have Aizen, I just don't think Toshiro's worth summoning for. If you are in a situation where you have to pick between one spirit character, Toshiro, or finally let's talk about Aizen, Aizen is definitely the character you should be going for. I think he's the most important character here to get on this rerun. Aizen right now is the best tactic character in the game, and the best part about him, right, is that he isn't restricted to only being used in spirit content. And you'll see here, Aizen's battlefield skill when it is active, which for the most part, it's always active because it's a very easy requirement to fulfill. Everyone in the team, regardless of their typing, gets 30% more damage. That in itself already makes him a must summon in my opinion, but he's also just a very powerful character where the character does work with his battlefield skill because he does have 3 different ones, and then also his ultimates. All three Battlefield skills are capable of dealing some really good damage, especially the most powerful one. I alone would stun it at the top of heavens, up to 1,600% of his attack. Very good attack here. Plenty of times on my end, it does deal millions of damage, and most of the time when I am playing with Toshiro and Aizen in the same team, Aizen is actually out DPSing Toshiro. I mean, Aizen's been out for a few months now, right? So we already know he's a very powerful character, but, you know, before this character came out, the assumption with tactic units is that they're always a secondary DPS, but in the case of Aizen, he really can be a main DPS. So much so that, again, if you don't want to summon for Toshiro, right, when it comes to building Aizen in a team, you actually can build him as a main DPS character. I've done that, and it is quite successful. And this team can definitely work, especially, again, if you get duplicative Aizen. But even if you don't, because my Aizen right now is B0, this team works relatively well. And you can even throw Rangiku onto the team if you want to. Maybe even do this, and he can actually deal like 50 million damage at B0, which is actually very similar to how, you know, the best team with Gin and also Kenpachi does work. So if you are in a situation where you can only pick between one spirit character, I would definitely say get Aizen over Toshiro. But most importantly, I would say prioritize Aizen over any character that is returning in less than 2 days' time. Especially because there's multiple content in this game where if you don't need to bring a mono team, for example, likely you are going to throw Aizen into that team. So overall, to recap the video, in my opinion, Gin and Aizen are definitely characters worth summoning for. Definitely prioritize Aizen over the other four. Ichigo, I think you can go without. I don't think you need him right now, especially with Kenpachi currently being available as a better alternative DPS character. And then Toshiro is also good and does make for the best spirit team, but I don't think he's as required as Aizen is, for example. So Aizen should definitely be your main priority, then Gin, especially if you do want to summon for Nelio in 2 weeks' time. Then probably summon for Toshiro, then probably summon for Ichigo. But I do think Ichigo and also Toshiro are quite skippable in my opinion. So with that said, that's the video for today. In the comments below, let me know if you are summoning for any of these characters. I think everyone's definitely going to be summoning for Aizen if you did miss him. And honestly, I don't blame you. Even myself, I'm quite tempted to summon for duplicates on these characters. I'm kind of playing the no dupe game right now, but it is very tempting to make some of these most fun and best characters in the game, most powerful characters in the game, even better. Even though technically I don't need to, but I like seeing big numbers. Either way, hope you liked and enjoyed the video. See you lads next time. Take care and peace.